So Anna Krylov, regular listeners will remember, I read from her piece called On the Perils of Politicizing Science back in Livestream 84 in June of 2021, which was published in the Journal of Physical Chemistry Letters, not a place where you might expect a piece called On the Perils of Politicizing Science to show up. She is herself a chemist at USC, born in the Soviet Union, and so knows whereof she speaks. And I've since had the opportunity to meet her. She's a wonderful person, as wonderful in person as in writing. And she made a speech at Duke a year ago that is now published on Dorian Abbott's Substack. Dorian Abbott himself is a geophysicist at the University of Chicago who writes on Substack, I haven't written it down here, Heterodox STEM is the name of his Substack. And he himself ran into trouble with woke culture when he co-authored an op-ed in Newsweek summer of 2021, in which he claimed that DEI, that is diversity, equity, and inclusion, violates the ethical and legal principle of equal treatment. Quote, it entails treating people as members of a group rather than as individuals, repeating the mistake that made possible the atrocities of the 20th century. It requires being willing to tell an applicant, I will ignore your merits and qualifications and deny you admission because you belong to the wrong group, and I have defined a more important social objective that justifies doing so. It treats persons as merely means to an end, giving primacy to a statistics over the individuality of a human being. For writing that, his talk at MIT was canceled because the mob made all the usual claims about being hurt and injured by this kind of argument. So that's Dorian Abbott, the geophysicist at University of Chicago, who has just republished Anna Krylov's speech to Duke just this week. And so Anna Krylov's piece, which is called, just a minute, once I scroll to the top, Zach, you can show my screen here if you like. This is just a PDF of the piece. I'll link to at Substack in the show notes. From Russia with Love, Science and Ideology Then and Now. And again, she is born in the Soviet Union, now has been in the United States for a very long time, a chemist at USC. And I wanted to say that she has organized her remarks in this piece, which I recommend you read the whole thing, into a discussion of the atmosphere of fear and self-censorship, which is related to what you've just been talking about, the omnipresence of ideology, with examples from science, the intolerance of dissenting opinions, suppression of ideas and people's censorship and newspeak, to use Orwell's term, and the use of social engineering to solve real and imagined problems. And it's really easy to go to, using social engineering to, the problem with using social engineering to solve imagined problems is a double whammy that does not make it a good thing. It makes it even worse. But let me read a little bit here from her piece. Let's begin, writes Dr. Krylov, with the pervasive fear of speaking up. First, some definitions. Self-censorship is the refusal to produce, distribute, circulate, or express something for fear of punishment. Self-censorship is different from discretion. When I choose not to talk about my views on religion at the dinner table in order not to upset my mother-in-law, that is discretion. But when I choose not to say in a faculty meeting that considering only diversity candidates for a faculty search is discriminatory because I am afraid of being ostracized or worse, that is self-censorship. The flip side of self-censorship is compelled speech. That is when people express opinions that are not their own for fear of punishment. Again, there is a difference between telling little white lies in order to please someone and saying something you do not believe in for fear of repercussions. Saying, oh, you look exactly like you did 30 years ago to your high school sweetheart is not compelled speech. Compelled speech is when your institution issues a pledge to fight systemic racism and you are afraid to ask, is there any evidence of systemic racism in our university? Instead, you stand up at the faculty meeting and pledge to apply yourself fully to dismantling systemic racism. We've met some of those people. Self-censorship is a reaction to oppressive environments. It is a symptom of fear. It is an indicator of cancel culture. A couple more things here. Newspeak is invading, this again from Orwell's 1984, Newspeak is invading the English language in a truly Orwellian fashion. A few examples illustrate this. The journal Nature published a letter calling for the replacement of the accepted technical term quantum supremacy by quantum advantage. The authors regard the English word supremacy as violent and equate its usage with promoting racism and colonialism. They also warn us about the damage inflicted by using such terms as conquest. Professional societies, including the Association for Computing Machinery, and tech companies, including Google and IBM, joined the suit. Last spring, I attended a meeting on quantum information science. It was a sad spectacle to watch grown-up scientists stumbling, trying to avoid the offensive word. About 90% conformed to this idiocy. So this is important because science has been trotted out so much in the last almost 3 years, right? As, well, we know you can't trust yourself, and you don't know enough to really understand what's going on, but we're going to bring out some lab coat wearing scientists. It's really hard to stay serious with a really completely charming epictabia on your chest like that. Apologies to those.
Sorry about that.
Just
back to the horror.
Oh my goodness, no, it makes things okay. That and the fact of excellent peaches in August helps make things okay. We have most of the public who are not scientists have been sold a bill of goods, have been assured, and have believed that the scientists, when they speak, are correct. They know what they're doing because science. Because you've all heard something about self-correcting, yada, 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 and hypothesis maybe, and lots of math, and therefore must be true. And what we see here in an anecdote, in an article filled with stories that are mostly not anecdotes, but this happens to be an anecdote, is about 90% of the scientists at a professional society, the Association for Computing Machinery, she doesn't specify, it's a meeting on quantum information science. About 90% of the attendees, all of whom are identified as scientists, tied themselves in knots trying to conform to the journal Nature's insane conclusion that the term quantum supremacy is violent and colonial. Okay? So if 90% of scientists will do that for a non-issue, how can we assume that any scientist standing up and saying, follow the science, isn't long since gone, if they ever had any ability to think scientifically at all? You had...
Well, there's a whole bunch on that thread that I want to follow.
Go for it.
The key thing, I think you make an excellent point. You're watching scientists bend over backwards over a trivial thing. And we actually pointed to the speech in Catch-22. Mm-hmm. I can't remember how long ago, but we pointed, there's a point at which the Great Loyalty Oath campaign has gotten to a point of absurdity, and I think it's Colonel Cathcart comes into the mess hall and kills it off by demanding that he give me eats without signing a loyalty oath, and then as he walks away with his food, having intimidated them into serving him, everybody's hoping that he'll break the campaign, and he says, give everybody eats, and the Great Loyalty Oath campaign comes to a crashing end.
But it requires a benevolent dictator in the moment, doesn't it?
It requires power, and the point is, absent that, the willingness of scientists to bend over backwards over a total non-issue when the real answer is, yeah, I'm not going to do that because it's stupid, right?
Yeah.
The fact that nobody says that tells you how powerful this is and how unlikely it is that scientists will stand up over something difficult, right? Now, it just so happens that this links back to what we were talking about that led you here, and I don't know whether we should pursue that thread or you finish out your Krylov
a couple
piece.
More things from Krylov.
We'll come
first.
back to it, though.
Brandeis University has a website dedicated to Newspeak. They recommend replacing trigger warning by content notice and offer DEI-approved suggestions for replacements for, she doesn't provide Brandeis's recommended replacements, but they offer DEI-approved suggestions for replacements for take a stab at it, you are killing it, walk-in appointment, and abusive relationship. Now, I don't know what their problem with abusive relationship is. I can understand what their problem with abusive relationships might be, but the idea that the term abusive relationship needs to be replaced by a DEI-sanctioned term such that you can guarantee that no one will know what you're talking about. But I'm betting that walk-in appointment is offensive because some people can't walk. That's my guess. I don't know. I mean, that's all I got. So, I mean, and this is what we have to do. We have to laugh at these people.
Right.
We have to laugh at these people. We have to not comply and not affirm and not say, yes, sir, and say, you're insane and you're laughable and come on along with me. See how foolish you were being. And, let's talk, okay? So a slightly longer section, one more excerpt here. Her fourth theme in the piece is social engineering to solve real and imagined problems. Writes Krylov, in the USSR, everything was managed top-down. So again, this is where she grew up. Social engineering was the main tool for building a supposedly better world. Let me share just one example. Our institutions were obsessed with demographics, which were controlled by quotas. For example, for Jewish kids, it was nearly impossible to get into top physics or mathematics programs. Why? Because Jews were overrepresented. And having too many Jewish faces among mathematicians did not represent the demographic makeup of our great nation.
That doesn't add up.
I learned about the existence of Jewish quotas on my first day at university. Before that, I believed the official narrative, that everyone has fair access to education and everyone can pursue their dreams. My dream was to study chemistry, so I applied to the chemistry department at Moscow State University. I passed the entrance exams and was duly admitted. But then it happened that I learned from a high school friend that the chemistry department had a special track for theoretically oriented students, and that it is very hard and very advanced. I had no idea what a theoretically oriented curriculum was about, but I signed up for it more or less on a dare because my friend told me that it is not suitable for girls. So, Anna, being a girl at the time, now a woman, so I am there on the first day of classes, meeting my classmates for the first time. There are about 30 kids enrolled. The first surprise, there are only 6 girls. Second surprise, most of the kids were Jewish. And they were in the program because it was as close as they could get to what they really wanted to study, math and physics. It was a back door via the less visible chemistry program. I remember telling my classmates how excited I was about chemistry and how I could not wait to get into a chemistry lab. In response, another girl, who later became my best friend, told her story. I hate chemistry. I want to study mathematics, but look at me, she said. I am obviously Jewish, and my family name is Jewish, so I have zero chance of getting into a physics or math department. That was the USSR.
Yeah.
In, I think, the 80s, near the end of its reign.
Gosh, the 80s. Wow.
Yeah. The last words in her piece, which again was from a speech delivered at Duke about a year ago. What can be done? Here are some ideas. First, speak up. Do not submit to bullies. Refuse to speak newspeak. If you see that the king is naked, say the king is naked. Second, organize. There is safety in numbers. Organizations such as the Academic Freedom Alliance, Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism, and the Heterodox Academy can provide a platform for action and protection against repercussions. Do your share in defending humanism, democracy, and the liberal enlightenment.
Hear, hear.